Hello, comrades, and welcome back to Ushanka Show. Здравствуйте, дорогие товарищи. Вы слушаете программу Ushanka Show. My name is Sergey, and I know just a little bit about life in the Soviet Union. Меня зовут Сергей, я немного знаю про жизнь в Советском Союзе. So today we're gonna travel all over the largest country in the world, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, USSR. And while we're gonna explore the cities and towns of the beautiful Soviet Union, we're also gonna talk about riots and uprising in the USSR. Remember this guy? Yes, this is Mikhail Gorbachev, the first and the last president of the Soviet Union. So in March of 1988, Gorbachev got interested in the history of the uprisings and riots in his country, so he requested a special report. And he got one. It was called «Справка КГБ СССР о массовых беспорядках с 1957 года». KGB of the USSR report about mass riots since 1957. Many people who participated in such riots were punished according to the criminal code of the Soviet Union, primarily Articles 70 and 190. Which covered anti-Soviet propaganda, and Article 190 covered spreading lies about the USSR, burning a Soviet flag or doing other stuff to the flag, and organizing mass meetings. So Article 70 was mostly about агитация и пропаганда, подрыв и ослабление советской власти, распространение клеветы. So anti-Soviet propaganda, actions to weaken Soviet power, and stuff like that. Punishment for such activities, jail time from 6 months up to 7 years, or being sent to exile, usually to Siberia, from 2 to 5 years. Article 190 of the criminal code was quite similar, mostly spreading lies about the USSR. And the punishment was jail up to 3 years, forced labor camps up to 2 years, or fines from 300 rubles and up. Okay, so now we are ready to explore Soviet hotspots and look at the different mass riots happening from 1957 till 1987. Our first stop is industrial city of Podolsk, Moscow region. Population around 200,000 people. Fun fact, Podolsk was the town where German company Zinger opened its factory manufacturing sewing machines that later was renamed as Подольский фабрика по производству швейных машин. In June of 1957, for about 2 days, there were massive riots with 3,000 people participating. KGB claims that riots started by the drunken citizens because of the rumors that local militia killed arrested driver. Kind of similar situation that we recently discussed in Priluki, Ukraine. From Podolsk, we're gonna travel down south to the southern Russia, city of Krasnodar, population around 900,000 people. On January 15, 1961, crowds around 1,300 people were acting like hooligans because of the rumors that a military person was arrested and beat up because he wasn't wearing his uniform properly. It got ugly. One person got killed. There was some shooting involved, and 24 people were convicted. From southern Russia, Krasnodar, we're gonna travel to town of Biysk, Altai region, so that's Siberia. June 21st, 1961, in Biysk, there were mass riots, around 500 people, protecting a drunk person that police was attempting to arrest at the central market. That person was refusing to get arrested, started fighting, using weapons. One person got killed, one person got injured, 15 people were arrested and convicted. From the distant Biysk, let's fly back to the town of Murom, Vladimir region, central Russia. Murom is one of the oldest cities in Russia. It used to be an important trading post. It's almost 1200 years old. It's a historical city with population around 120,000 people. So in the same month of June 1961, over 1,500 workers from the local factory almost destroyed the local, and it's called Medvytrezvитель, so that's the place when they bring drunk people. So one of the workers was brought there by police and he died there. So the workers got upset, stormed that building. Police was shooting. 2 people got wounded. 12 people got arrested. Our next stop gonna be the city of Alexandrov, Vladimirsky region. It's about 120 kilometers from Moscow. Population somewhere around 60,000 people. So we're still in the summer of 1961. So this is July 23rd. Around 1,200 people went on the streets and marched towards the local police department to help 2 of their arrested comrades. Police used weapons. 4 people got killed, 11 got wounded, 20 people got arrested and convicted. From the central Russia, we're gonna fly to Northern Ossetia Republic, town of Beslan, population around 30,000 people. Beslan got famous, well, ill-famous, quite a few years ago when the school was taken by terrorists and a lot of children got killed. So events there happened in September of 1961 for 2 days. So it looks like 1961 was a pretty ugly year in the Soviet Union. So around 700 people started riots. It happened because of unsuccessful attempt of the local police to arrest 2 drunken people that were hanging out. People refused to get arrested, and actually they had weapons, probably knives. 1 person got killed, 7 people got convicted. From Beslan, we're gonna fly to Rostov region, town of Novocherkassk, which is a cultural capital of Don region Cossacks, population around 170,000 people. So here we're talking about that most well-known Soviet uprising in July 1962. Around 4,000 workers from the local factory were extremely upset because retail prices for meat and butter went up, pay went down. So there was those Khrushchev reforms. Troops were used. 23 people got killed, around 70 got wounded, 132 people got arrested and convicted. That's so-called Novocherkasskaya Vostanie, Novocherkask's uprising. From Novocherkassk, we're going now to Ukraine, Dnipropetrovsk region, the city of Kryvyi Rog, which is a large industrial city, 650,000 people population. It has a lot of iron ore mining, and metallurgical factories. Events occur on June 1963 for about 3 days. Riots, about 600 people participating. It's all started with police trying to arrest a drunk soldier who refused to get arrested. And it started from there. 4 people killed, 15 wounded, 41 arrested and convicted. So you see a lot of this is police attempting to arrest drunk citizens or drunk soldiers who went on leave. From Kryvyi Rog, Ukraine, now we jump into Azerbaijan Republic, town of Sumgait, which is the 3rd largest city in Azerbaijan. It's around 30 kilometers from Baku, population about 250,000 people. I actually had a chance to visit Sumgait way back in like 1987 when there was the group of kids. We stayed in Baku and then we traveled around. But anyways, here we're talking about events of November 7, 1963. So this was something different. So November 7th, that's usually when we have a demonstration for the October Revolution. So around 800 people started the riots defending the demonstrators. They were carrying pictures of Stalin. So that's interesting. So instead of carrying pictures of Comrade Khrushchev and Lenin and Marx, they were carrying pictures of Stalin. So militia and their helpers were trying to take away the portraits. So other people got upset. Around 800 people got involved. Weapons were used. One person was wounded, 6 got arrested and convicted. From the beautiful Republic of Azerbaijan, former oil capital of Russia, now we're flying back to Moscow region, town of Broniцы. It's about 50 kilometers from Moscow, population about 20,000 people. So what happened in Bronicy? On April 16, 1964, around 300 people stormed local police department, which also had cells where they kept arrested people. So local citizen died from after being beat up by local police. People got upset. There was no weapons used. No one got killed, but 8 people got arrested and convicted. So once again, we got drunk arrest. Police show some brutality, and locals get upset. Okay, comrades, so we're about halfway through the list of mass riots that happened in Soviet Union between 1957 and 1987. We're gonna take a break here, so if you have any questions, please post below this video. Don't forget to put likes, and we'll talk to you soon. My name is Sergey, and I used to be armed and dangerous back in the USSR.
If you're interested in the Soviet Union, I highly recommend a channel called Ushanka Show, which is a YouTube show about a guy who lived in the Soviet Union and then moved to America. He talks about life, what life was like under the Soviet Union, and it's very fascinating. So,
and by the way, my book American Diaries 1995 Adventures of a Russian Student in Michigan is available on Amazon. This is Comrade Shelby from Maine. Like many other readers, he enjoyed my book and he found it's not too long or boring. Some people will understand that joke. Okay, so after this shameless self-advertising, now we're gonna return to the topic of KGB documents. This document was discovered by Ukrainian historian Eduard Andriushenko. I'll post link to his Facebook page below this video. So some time ago, I asked my friend Eduard to send my way anything from northern Ukraine, any documents related to the Soviet history and KGB reports from northern Ukraine, where my grandparents originally came from, and my goodness, he found something very, very interesting. Even Comrade Stalin probably say, I can't believe it happened in my country. So this report takes us to the town of Priluki in northern Ukraine. I've never been, unfortunately, in that town, but it's a quite old, historic town in Ukraine. The town of Priluki is over 1,000 years old, and it was mentioned many times as a center of Ukrainian Cossacks, so that's kind of like Ukrainian militia way back. It also has a lot of churches, and some of them were destroyed during the Soviet times. Priluki also had quite a large Jewish population in the 1800s and early 1900s. And in 1889, a couple of Jewish businessmen opened a tobacco factory, which is still in business right now. Of course, currently it has different owners. After Ukraine became independent, British America Tobacco purchased the factory. So during the Soviet days, if anyone will tell me Priluki, I would automatically think about is only one thing, is Прилуцкая табачная фабрика, we say in Ukrainian, Прилуцька тютюнова фабрика. And I wasn't even a smoker, but like everyone knew that most of the local cigarettes came from Priluki. And I'm not sure about quality, as I said, I never smoked, but this was the only thing I knew about that town, is its tobacco factory. And when I was gathering information for this video, I discovered they actually have a factory. It's not in Priluki, it's nearby. It's called Pozhmashina. So since 1920s, they manufactured firefighting equipment, including different trucks. So they purchased, of course, chassis from different factories, and then they put firefighting equipment on them. So that factory is still in business apparently, which is quite surprising. Priluki was also home for the Priluki Air Base, located 6 kilometers west of the town. In late 1980s, Priluki Air Base had around 20 Tu-160 long-range bombers that NATO called Blackjack. But when Ukraine became independent, by 2012, Priluki Air Base was abandoned. Some bombers were returned to Russia to pay off energy bills, and currently only have just a monument for the Tupolev Tu-16. Well, comrades, I wanted to apologize for this long detour, and I hope you're not as angry as this cute little doggy. And now we returning to our main story. Unclassified KGB documents from 1967, Soviet Ukraine. So the events described in this document happened in October of 1967. So this is exactly 3 years since the removal of Nikita Khrushchev. So this is the beginning of the Leonid Brezhnev long, successful, maybe you could say, rule. The guy who stabbed his friend Khrushchev right in his back. This document is addressed to the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Ukraine, and there's a handwritten note says it was personally reported to Comrade Socialist. Pyotr Socialist was one of the favorites of Nikita Khrushchev, and he was the leader of the Communist Party of Ukraine from 1963 until 1972. So 5 years after described events, Brezhnev removed him and replaced with his favorite, Sherbitsky. So events described in this document happened on October 8, 1967, about 6 p.m. in town of Priluki, Chernihiv region, when a group of the local citizens, around 25 people, during the funeral of the local driver, Saiko, that's the last name, attacked the local local department of militia, which is, we can say it police, but we used to call it militia. They threw rocks in the broke windows. They tried to get inside, and were trying to also to destroy vehicles that belong to police. At the same time, hooligan elements began breaking windows. It is located nearby, like a county police department, and it was the same building where the local KGB offices were located. After a warning shot from the local militia, the crowds left the building but continued attacking the city militia building. Soon there were around 500 people of local citizens that gathered around this place. Due to the civil unrest, they called 300 soldiers from the local garnison, so it's like a military base, and using these soldiers helped to stop the uprising, and around 10 o'clock crowds dissipated. So we're not talking here about Portland, Oregon. This is a Priluki, Soviet Ukraine, 1967. During restoration of the order in the town of Priluki, they arrested local citizen Zubova Anna Ivanovna, born in 1927. So she was 40 years old at that time, and she was the relative of Saiko, the person that was the funeral for, and she was spreading leaflets around the town. So these leaflets were written by hand, and they had the following messages: Смертная казнь Polishchuka, so death to Polishchuk, and that's the guy who has the same last name as me. Shame to the militia of town of Priluki. No mercy to the SS. That's interesting. So they call a local militia just like German SS troops. Then next will be two other were messages about that several Naumenka and Harchenka must be arrested. And these last names mentioned was actually current or previous workers of the local militia. So definitely local people had issue with the local militia. In total, they arrested 18 people that were creating trouble, but they were released later after being checked out, после проверки. According to initial information, so that's KGB reporting, so they asking local police what's happening. The reason for this uprising was arrest by militia of a driver, Saiko Nikolai, born in 1943. So in 1967, he was 24 years old, so young guy. So he was acting like a hooligan at the House of Culture in Priluki and was arrested. So let's see what happened. On October 1st, so this is, we're talking a week prior this uprising, during a dance evening in the House of Culture, Dom Kultury in Priluki, There's Nikolai Saiko and his cousin Kuzmenko Anatoly, born in 1944, so he's a 23-year-old. Being drunk, в нетрезвом состоянии, they started fight. Using a whip made from the metal cable. So this is handmade device. So they have a special whips to fight other people. So this Saiko guy, a driver, hit one of the musicians of the orchestra. So musician using his trombone, says musical instrument, but it sounds like a trombone, he hit Saiko in his nose. So both Saiko and his cousin Kuzmenko were arrested by the militia workers, работники милиции. The next day they let Kuzmenko go, but Saiko, since he used that whip, he had a criminal case started against him because of being a hooligan, and he was placed into KPZ. So KPZ, it's a камера предварительного заключения, so it's like cell, jail cell for the initial arrest. And it says on October 3rd, so trouble started on October 1st. On October 3rd, so second day, Saiko started complaining about not feeling good, and doctor looked at him and didn't find anything wrong. So on the next day, October 4th, Saiko once again complained about not feeling well. They called doctor one more time, and the doctor said, hey, you need to send him to the hospital. And the next day, that person passed away at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So trouble started October 1st, got into the jail cell. On October 5th, he was dead in the hospital. And according to the medical expertise, he died from meningitis, which sounds really strange. Oh, meningitis, I think you guys saying it right. The funeral was scheduled for October 8 at 1700, so at 5 p.m., which is suspiciously super quick. So he passed away on October 5th. And usually it's, I think, like 3 days you don't bury the person, so it should be, if they got his body on the 6th at home, so I would say the 9th would be a proper time, but it looks like police was in a hurry to bury the person. And I said, meningitis, it's really strange kind of reason of death in the jail cell. And several participants of this funeral procession demanded to carry the cask with the body of this guy towards the city department of militia. So apparently among those people at the funeral was the local secretary of party organization. He tried to convince people not to do it, not to take the body to the militia office. And then a driver refused to drive the vehicle towards that direction. So they took the cask off the truck and carried it towards the militia building when all troubles started. So while they were carrying the cask towards militia office, 25 people separated from that procession and started troubles. And a little bit later, relatives of the deceased actually carried the cask to the cemetery and buried the person while others were creating trouble. So in order to discover the instigators of this uprising and preventing from possible future events, there was a KGB group was sent to Priluki, as well as local KGB leader in Chernihiv region, and they promised to send additional information upon arrival. So here you are, life in the Soviet Union in 1960s. It's so eerie, familiar to what's going on currently in the United States of America. And actually, it's not the end of the story. I have a couple more documents follow up. There was like more trouble on the next day, on October 9th. They had crowds up to 300 to 400 people. So there was quite some serious troubles in Priluki back in 1967. Well, comrades, that's all I got for you for today. I hope you enjoyed this story and maybe learned something new. As always, please don't forget to like this video, share with your friends, and we'll talk to you soon. So today we're going to talk again about declassified KGB documents from 1967 about events in Soviet Ukraine. This document was discovered by Ukrainian historian Eduard Andriushenko. I'll post link to his Facebook page below this video. My special thanks и огромное спасибо to all my supporters on patreon.com. Thank you, comrades. It's greatly appreciated. So this is the continuation of my previous video, Secret KGB Files, 1967, Citizens Uprising in Priluki, Soviet Ukraine. So this is uprising against local police brutality, so pretty much the Soviet Lives Matter movement. So once again, we're returning to the small town of Priluki, population about 60,000 people, located in the northern Ukraine. But before we start, I would like to answer a couple of comments and questions that people posted below my first video about this event. The first one is from Zhana Romanchenko. So by her name, I could tell she's probably originally from Ukraine or Russia. This is so stupid to compare the uprising in Priluki to what's going on now in the US, especially by reading the documents from one side without showing the other side, victim's family, and trying to find out what's really happened there. Actually, militia had beaten to death that man, and burning the militia department was a very right thing to do. People were fighting for their rights. Don't compare USSR militia and US police. They're totally different. I don't know, it's probably can be the whole series of videos comparing Soviet militia and United States police, but I'm not sure why this lady thinks it's stupid to compare President Priluki and what's going on in the United States. In both cases, police arrested a person got killed while being in custody or died, from heart attack or meningitis, and people got upset, and then we have buildings being destroyed, police stations torched. I see a lot of similarities. I mean, both Soviet militia and American police were created to protect law and order. And actually, Soviet militia was militia just by name. Those were professionals paid by the government to do their job. So militia, that was technically police. At the same time, like local police here, for example, in Michigan, we pay them through property taxes. So it's more like militia, and we elect our sheriff. So we kind of more connected to police than we used to be connected to the local militia back in the Soviet Union. All right, next question. Sounds like people with ties to the old Ukrainian insurgent army. After World War II, they ran an active campaign of attacking KGB, police, and party members and facilities. Having the balls to attack police stations sounds like Ukrainian insurgent army to me. I don't think that's the case. Ukrainian insurgent army, or as they say in Ukrainian, Ukrainska повстанческая armia, their areas of operation were Volhynia, Polesia, Galicia, so Western Ukraine, Carpathian Mountains, Podolia. So most of the areas they used to be part of the Poland. Then they got occupied by the Soviet Union. They got taken over by Germany. Then taken over by Soviet Union again. And they were acting pretty much from 1942 till 1949. Well, they're active, and then here and there till 1956 they were fighting the Soviets. Events were described as 1967. It's in northern Ukraine, so it's nothing to do with UPA. Actually, while searching about this topic, about Priluki, I stumbled upon a witness account. So that's actually not from the police point of view, but from the locals. And the guy mentioned something very interesting. He said there used to be an area in Priluki, in this town, that local people were always having problem with local police. So that was like a Soviet ghetto. But the difference that they historically were people who had their own little businesses. They were like artisans, so people making things, making money, which, illegal in the Soviet Union to produce something on your own and sell, but they were, probably making moonshine, making some equipment, maybe clothing. So they were constantly harassed by police, by militia. So, in Soviet Union, ghetto, it's where police doesn't let you to work. They don't want you to work because it's illegal. So they always had trouble with police, and this killing happened. The guy actually lived in that area, so that's kind of what kind of triggered this whole uprising, because they were fed up with being arrested, harassed, and now it was like, major event that everyone just pretty much got enough of it, and they started creating serious trouble. Okay, so finally back to our KGB report. This is a next report. So first one was dated from October 9. This one is follow-up from the October 10 of 1967. So once again addressed to the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Ukraine. A special announcement. On October 8 of this year, in town of Priluki, Chernihiv region, hooligan elements created troubles. Беспорядки, I don't know how to translate it, more like troubles, which was reported to, once again, to Communist Party of Ukraine on October 9 in communique number 734H. So that happened October 8. On October 9, so next day, at 10 o'clock in the morning, by the building of Priluki City Department of Militia, slowly started gathering small groups of citizens. By 2 o'clock p.m., they had around 200 people there. And it says, in some periods of time, total crowds were up to 350 to 400 people. That's quite a bit of people, considering how small that town is. Around 10 to 15 people approached the doors of the building and demanded to have the police chief to come out, or like actually to be given to people, as well as the group of the militia officers that arrested on October 1st this late Psycho guy and his cousin Kuzmenko. So they actually, large crowd of people by the police department demanding, let us see the police chief as well as the people who arrested and beat up, I guess, this late citizen Psycho and his cousin. So it definitely sounds like people didn't buy the version that a person passed away because it had meningitis. I mean, if you had a severe bruises probably on your face and body, it definitely tells a different story. It doesn't specify in the document, but that's my guess, because for the second day in a row, hundreds of people gathered by the police department. Then it says here that the first secretary of Communist Party of the local city, the Department of Communist Party, Comrade Marchenko showed up, as well as Comrade Skapenko, who is like procureur, so it's like a judge. So there's some serious party, local party leaders and prosecution leaders came to talk to the people, as well as председатель исполкома. I even don't know how to translate that. So another Comrade Robot, so they were talking to these folks. So these Soviet apparatchiks explain what happened, the whole substitute of the events, and then they told them that they're going to create a special committee to investigate what happened, and then asked the people to just go back home. So now the government agrees, like, hey, we agree with you, something probably happened that we need to investigate. So some people left, but around from 100 to 150 people remained at the building. So not many people left. So they actually got closer to the building, and some of them continued to demand to let them see the local police chief. Because of that situation, they brought military, they brought Druzhina, KGB workers and the rest of police, and they were pushing people away from the police building. So quite interesting. So fortunately, there was no shooting, no bloodshed, and Ukrainians generally kind of, I would say, mild people. They're not hot-blooded as maybe Georgians or Armenians or Azerbaijanis. So here they said by 7 p.m. crowd slowly dissipated, and by 9 p.m. on October 9, there was no one left. During initial investigation, they located the police. They figured out 11 people that were like steering trouble, and also they arrested 11 people from hooligan elements. They were actually creating resistance to the military patrols. All the arrested people were moved. And it says they were moved out from Nezhin, so they arrested them and moved somewhere else. And here's kind of interesting part because it shows government reaction to this event. So they kind of trying to calm people down while trying to locate who is the main troublemakers and try to arrest them and remove them. In the same time, they removed all the people who were locked up in the local KPZ, so it's a камера предварительного заключения, like initial arrest place, was like a jail cells. So they got them all moved out of town. They became guarding post offices as well as telegraph offices and radio station. So they not screwing around. With participation of the local Soviet Party active members, they began round-the-clock patrol of the streets, especially the area surrounding the police station. And by the end, it's kind of the classic Soviet way. So the local factories, especially, first of all, at the Автотранспортный Park, so there's like a truck outfit where this late Psycho worked. So they're gonna organize corresponding explaining work. They call it разъяснительная работа. So that's party leaders and maybe KGB officers gonna show up, have a gatherings, and they're gonna explain workers like, hey, this is what actually happened. There's no reason to be worried about. So that's разъяснительная работа. It's a popular expression in the Soviet Union when they're trying to kind of like calm people down and explain them what actually happened. And it says they're gonna continue reporting about how the investigations being carried on. And it's signed by the chief of the KGB of Ukraine, Comrade Nikitchenko. And of course, the described events in Priluki weren't the only uprising in the Soviet Union. In fact, I found out that when Gorbachev came to power, he requested a list of similar events that happened, in 50s and 60s and 70s, so to kind of get idea what is actually going on in the country. And I mean, there's a lot of things were happening, from basic like soldiers that they came from Russia or Ukraine, for example, and they located in maybe Baltic states or somewhere in Asia. They're trying to date local girls. Local guys get upset. Fighting started. Some people get killed. Then, of course, locals getting mad, and of course, it goes out of control. Another event I stumbled upon happened in Nikolaev, southern Ukraine. So that's a big port. So local workers refused to load a ship with grain that was heading to Cuba because they had a horrible shortage of food in town. And they got very upset that Soviet government is loading ships with grain to send to Cuba while local stores are empty. So they got upset and they refused. So they started a strike in the Soviet Union, refusing to do the job because why you feeding Cubans when we don't have food for ourselves? Okay, comrades, so this is all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video, maybe learned something new. As always, don't forget to like it, share with your friends, and we'll talk to you soon. Меня зовут Сергей, и в 1971 году я родился в Советском Союзе. Today's video was made possible by Ukrainian historian Eduard Andrющенko. You can check out his YouTube channel, KGB Papers. I'll provide links below this video. Okay, so today we're gonna wrap up our story about uprising in town of Priluki, Chernigov region, Ukraine, in October of 1967. KGB reports about those events, so we're talking 1967. They were kept secret all the way till 2013 when they finally became declassified, and I talked about those riots quite in detail in a previous video. If you're not familiar with it, please check it out and then return to this story. Several of my viewers asked what actually happened to the participants of those riots, and today we're going to look at the KGB report from February of 1968. So the riots in town of Priluki, Chernigov region occurred on October 8 and 9 of 1967, but this report to the Central Committee of Communist Party of Ukraine is dated now February 28, 1968. So the document states that in January of 1968 there was an open court proceeding in Chernigov, which is already interesting because events happen in Priluki, but the court happened in Chernigov, which is about 100 miles away from that town where the riots occurred. So according to the Chernigov region court, the initiators and active participants of above-mentioned riots received different terms of лишения свободы, so it's like jail time. So total of 11 people got different terms of taking their freedoms away. Comrade Zubova, so that's female, she got 8 years. Gamankov, that's a male guy, 6 years. Then you got Alexeyenko, Danilov, Kozlova, Golovnya, 4 other male people, 5 years. Afanasyev, Ivanenko, 4 years. Chernenko and Sologub, 3 years. And Sakun, 2 years of taking away freedom. And says besides the people who were part of this process, there were some relatives and several local citizens from the Chernigov. And there was nothing unusual during this process. There was no troubles, no screams, and nothing like that. Well, first of all, I find it kind of unusual that the hardest punishment was received by a female. Usually during riots, it's the guys that create the most of the trouble. In this case, I'm not sure what she was up to. I need to try to find additional information. But she got 8 years, so that's a big term to be away, to be put away. And now we'll have to have another lesson in the Soviet Russian language. So sit down behind your desk and listen very carefully, pupil. So all these troublemakers, they weren't sent to prison. They were sent to so-called ITK. So that's the abbreviation. ITK, it's abbreviation for Исправительно-трудовая колония. ИТК, Исправительно-трудовая колония. You can translate Исправительно-трудовая колония as a re-education and a labor colony. It's kind of interesting they use the word colonia as a colony instead of camp. So it's pretty much re-education and labor camp. So it's where they're trying to make you a better person, I guess, in the Soviet meaning of that word, and you have some forced labor, so you stay busy. The system of исправительно-трудовых колоний, re-education and labor colonies, existed in the Soviet Union from 1929 all the way till 1996. So this is pretty much, we're talking about 70 years almost. Fun fact, before 1929, such places were called concentration camps, концентрационный лагерь, but government didn't like the name, so they changed it in 1929 into re-education and labor colony. And of course, these ITK places were part of Gulag, Государственное управление лагерей. And we had quite a few of those all over the Soviet Union. The official main purpose of such places was перевоспитание, re-education, and giving prisoners some labor skills and experience in communal lifestyle. So it seems like people with minor criminal offenses or some like anti-Soviet propaganda, domestic violence, accidental deaths, like you drop the brake from the balcony, you kill the person by accident, so they won't send you to prison. You're going to end up in this re-education labor camp. And they usually had about between 500 to 1,000 people in a single place. Such colonies usually had labor contracts with local factories, collective farms, construction places, and such. So prisoners were busy loading and unloading cargo for example, loading and unloading trains. Famous activity in Siberia is cutting trees, of course. And then they also worked a lot in construction, like building roads, digging channels for the waterways, building tunnels, and so on. So just pretty much free labor and re-education. And also kind of cute little detail, so such ITK, they also had a different levels of regime, so how the strict rules are. So there was a general, then it was like усиленный, so like strict, and then extremely strict. So общий режим, усиленный режим, и строгий режим. And in this situation with Priluki people, they got different terms to serve in of those labor camps, and also like this lady got 8 years of general regime, while next guy got 6 years, but in усиленный regime, so extra strict, so less years, but in a harder camp. It's kind of interesting. So this is how the Soviet Union dealt with its citizens who participated in different uprising and riots for creating troubles and burning down police buildings. You could get from 2 to 8 years of prison term, and you will be re-educated and will get some labor skills along the way. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. As always, please don't forget to like this video, share with your friends, and we'll talk to you soon. До свидания. Goodbye.